Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Expanse Season 2, Episode 13. It is the season finale. It's called Caliban's War. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. Well, first of all, this is the title of this episode is the title, I believe, of the second book. Just
Yeah,
throwing that out there. But God, where to start? This
this felt like a season final.
Yeah, this had a lot of big stuff in it, and everything felt big. I don't think I have a grin across my face quite like the moment when Cotillard said to Draper, "Your power armor is in the shuttle,"
I know.
and I was like, "Oh, ho, 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 ho.
You just know where this is going.
Go get it, Draper! Come back like a Terminator and take out these assholes left and right."
So satisfying.
We'll do that one first. I think that's probably the simplest and quickest plot line. It was Draper was sneaking around the ship. She got an event and she was sneaking around. Had that funny exchange with a couple of where she beat them up and she was annoyed that the gun wouldn't work for her. Obviously, it was like DNA synced or whatever.
Yeah, genetic lock or whatever.
Yeah, and she has that funny moment with the electrician, and she talks him out of it. She's like, "Do you believe in the cause, the man you're sacrificing yourself for?" Because she's already she's also had her entire what she thought she would sacrifice herself for completely
I like that though.
messed
She
up for
does
her.
that, and his answer isn't yes or no. It's just I'm an electrician.
I'm an electrician. I'm not a soldier. Don't kill me, please. Nah, that was good. That was funny, and even like Avasarala and Kotyar sitting there
Yeah,
were mostly actually really funny. It was kind of they're in this situation where it's they might die. Kotyar could die. We even speculated last episode he might be the one to go, and he's sitting there bleeding out. And most of it was really funny. Like almost everything they were saying to each other was cracking me up, one way or the
yeah.
other. Until it got to that moment where you think the guy's trying to make a deal with Kotyar, where he's like, so, just hand her over. She's the only one we really care about. We'll let you go. I mean, you're fine. And it feels like he's maybe going down that path. Although I was kind of speculating the entire time, maybe he's just trying to draw the conversation out
Yeah, that's what I figured too.
to buy Draper time. But it actually led to a little bit of interesting character stuff where Vassarala even wants to like save him by getting out because he's like, yeah, like I owe your son. Like your son is dead because I didn't do my job.
Yeah.
I owe him, and I'm repaying him by keeping you safe. Because that's kind of the final moment where you realize he's not actually taking this offer seriously. Because it seems like he is up until that point.
Yeah,
And then he says that, and it's like, oh, and she's like almost moved enough by it that she gets up. Other funny line that I really like from them is when Draper points out the vent. Oh, we can get through there, and Avastra says that won't work, and she's like, oh, of course. It's like not because I'm old, because he's wounded.
yeah. And he goes, yeah, and then he looks and goes, but she is old too.
Yeah, she's pretty damn old. So it was a really fun plot. I mean, obviously the ending was Draper coming back in with the power armor and punching them all out.
I love that it played over this version of the opening credits music.
Yeah, that was playing over the whole end. In fact, I was kind of humming it as I was sitting down to record
It
it.
was a really great version of it though.
Yeah, because it was obviously the more emotional. Like we're having this big ending montage of all the plots. Because obviously Naomi's talking over all this going on as well. Because her scene's playing over it. But no, if I have any complaints, I do kind of wish there was just a little bit more of her walking down like a hallway, taking out guys left and right. I wanted full on Terminator.
Yeah, no, I agree. You just want another 30 seconds of her just taking out dudes.
Yeah. Like before she got to that room, like just a scene that wasn't in slow motion. Just a scene where she was quickly just thumping them all.
Just dispatching them with like just the brutal
Yeah.
efficiency that we know she has.
Like play that scene as it is. Like don't change that scene at the end, but just give us a
But
scene
just add a
before
little
that.
bit extra.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a scene before that where it's not in slow motion, where she's just taking out guys left and right. But it's a minor nitpick. But no, so that's super cool. Venus
Yeah.
and the Abagast, and let's talk about that. So they're going down, and then the Martian ship also goes down, and they're like, "Oh, the Martian ship is not there anymore."
I love their banter before they go down.
Yeah,
where
it's
they're
like-
like, hey, this is the bit where you tell me to go down.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, but this is when you tell me the Martians don't let us.
Because every time we've seen them, they've been arguing. It's almost like they've bonded over the time.
Yeah.
Like they've become friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously we see the protomolecule little like blue specks start to float in the ship as after the ship stops dead. Like the protomolecule stopped them midair.
Yeah.
And then we go away, and it's during the ending montage where we come back to it, and we're just getting a shot of the ship, the little ship that they have, this little circular ship, and then it just explodes. No, but not
Do you know what?
not a classic explosion. No, there's no flames, there's no fireballs, none of that. It explodes. Think of how Xavier would blow up something with his mind, where he just makes it go into all these little parts. He separates it all.
That's what I like about it. It's dismantled. It's not exploded because you can see all the parts still.
Oh, sure.
None of the parts individually are damaged.
Sure, but I think explode's still a good word to use, though, because the way it all separates out the way. Yeah, visually it's still a kind of an explosion of parts. It's kind of like like if you're opening like a packet of something, like, crisps, chips, and you like slam it, and then you'd say they explode out the bag, but it's not an explosion. But it's just the way everything comes apart.
It's really great.
But then you see what about the people inside? And then the camera gets in, and we see them floating, and it's just the bewilderment on their face, and even the smiles.
They're looking down and
like,
seeing it
whoa,
properly.
This is, and technically they should be dead. Like Venus is not a pleasant environment for living things, but obviously protomolecules doing things, and they mentioned at one point the crater was moving, so let's not gloss over the crater
was moving. That's so cool.
Oh god, they're teasing so much big stuff. But of course, the main bulk of the episode was the Rassi. It was the crew on the Rassi. I don't think I've ever been reminded more of Mass Effect when Amos and Holden go in with their guns and full gear, and this proto-sapien, who's credited, by the way, I'm noticing in the credits they're calling him the hybrid, which, okay, it works.
Do we have to go with it?
All right, proto-sapien, fine. And which, by the way, as much as I laughed at the other stuff with the Visceral and that, the biggest laugh second biggest. The biggest laugh's later on. I'll get to that later. But one of the biggest laughs I had early on was Naomi's reaction to seeing it on the camera. She just drops that F-bomb, and she's like, "What the is that?" And just it really, really made me laugh.
See, you say it reminded you of Mass Effect, which I can see. But with all the first-person HUD stuff, it proper reminded me of Doom.
When it went first-person, sure. But I think because the thing looks like a husk from Mass Effect, combined with the fact that their suits are very Mass Effect-y.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I was giving me that vibe. But no, so this thing's like in there, and it's in the cargo hold, trying to get down to the fuel to the core to feed off of it, as we've seen it do. We've seen that's the sort of thing that it does.
Yeah.
And we get into this really similar situation as we were with Miller, actually, earlier in the season, where Holden gets trapped. The proto-sapien throws a container at him, and it magnetizes around him, like the legs sort of stick to the wall and the ground, and he's trapped. He can't get out. And he's in there in his suit the whole episode, and we're like, I don't necessarily think we're going to lose Holden, but it plays very much like that, where we might have to lose him. The only way we might be able to beat this is to blow out that compartment, and that would obviously kill Holden. Do we have other options, other plans? And they're looking for them throughout the episode.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because even if you don't believe that they will do it, it's interesting to see how the characters react to the scenario.
Yeah, and so a couple of things I really liked about this whole plot, because obviously the ultimate plan is that Prax sort of has an idea. Let's give it an alternate source that it'll chase after. We'll lure it out, and they do that with the core of a nuclear bomb, and he hesitates to throw it, which is a nice suspenseful moment, but the proto-sapiens coming at them outside the ship. It's all, by the way, that crawling outside of the ship as the ship was spinning, that was really
fantastic.
Cool. That was fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how they get him. And oh man, the ultimate 2001: A Space Odyssey homage, as the thrusters burning the proto-sapien, and it's sort of in that baby fetal position.
Fetal position, yeah.
And it was very intentional. Even the fact that
absolutely.
The flame was even mostly blue as well, which gave it that.
And it lights in slower as well. It doesn't just all come on at once.
Oh yeah, it's in slow motion as well, so you really get the sense of like that image from 2001. So it's very clear parallels that it's drawing with that, which I think is really interesting, given that most people think that movie's about advancing to the next stage of evolution and kind of thing. Is the proto-molecule the monolith, as it were, for this story?
It could, it's a good way of looking at it.
And therefore, this hybrid is the next stage of evolution.
Is that the next stage? Yeah.
I don't know, but here we are.
That's like you say. There's no way that wasn't intentional. They want you to
Oh God, yeah.
be aware of this link and have this potential idea in your head at least. Maybe it's a fake out, but they want us to think that.
Yeah, maybe they'll go in a different direction, but it doesn't mean it's not relevant. It doesn't mean that those ideas, those thoughts, the idea of... I mean, even the name of the show, The Expanse, is about expanding beyond what we already are. I mean, sure, literally it's about location, but it's also about every other way of expansion. Everything's expanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Technology, designs, blah, 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 everything. Just the way we treat each other. Except arguably not, because as Naomi points out in her speech at the end, we've always been at war. We've always, technology changes, all these other things changes. And that's a big point. So, a lot of things I like about this plot. One, it solidifies Prax as a valued member of the team because he's the one that has the idea. He thinks of it through his knowledge of botany. In fact, another funny line I really liked is when Amos is like, "Oh, are you sure that's the right thing?" He's like, "No, I'm a botanist." He's like, "But you're a doctor."
Yeah, it was like when he was suiting up to go out with a bomb. And he goes, "And I thought the weirdest thing I do today was patch up a bullet hole."
Yeah. But no, because it makes at the end of the ship when they're thanking him and Holden thanks him, it feels alright. He's a proper part of the crew now. He's not going to feel like he's a prisoner in his cell. He's
part of the team.
Yeah, he's part of the team, and I think that's cool. So I like that, and I like that it's his unique skill set that came with up with the plan as well. So we know he's got a unique skill set that other ones have, and that can help in various reasons. He can maybe analyze the protomolecule in a way that none of them can. He can understand it in a better way.
He has a solid purpose on the team.
Yeah,
all of them do, but up till now it was like, right, what is his purpose? But this has made it very clear.
Yeah, so I like that. I like that a lot. The other stuff I like, obviously, is the more clear cut, sort of stuff that it sets up at the end with Naomi and Holden. And we find out she already... Because you know what she's going to admit to a point. Because this is what I liked about this reveal at the end, when she's like, alright, we said no more secrets, I've been keeping one, and we know what it is. And we know, right, they've just made up, she was happy at the start of the episode, and they're all happy they've got him saved. And we got the speeches where he tried to talk to her, he's like, look, this might be the end, I've been on this other side of this conversation, if we've got a few minutes, we're doing this conversation. Even Amos has a really good touch, and kind of funny, because he says a couple of really, cold things without thinking, as Amos does.
A couple of Amosy things. Yeah.
But again, it's a really touching moment where he's almost like, if this is goodbye, I want you to know so and so.
Do you know what? There was almost one thing I was a little bit sad we didn't get. So Holden's very clear with Amos. It's like, you blow this if it comes to that. But Naomi tells Amos, you don't do it until I say. And I would have liked to see which one because he has this loyalty with Naomi, but Holden's the captain, and I would have almost liked to see that in a debate that he'd have had to go through as to which one he follows through with.
If I was to guess, I would say, okay, this specific example's been dropped, but I don't think that's something we're not going to explore later.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
but it would have been nice to see it.
I feel like that's maybe setting up an idea, a conflict for him for down the line, and depending on how Holden reacts to Naomi's news at the end, because we don't get. I mean, that's the end of the episode. Is this montage, and we fade out on this. Well, there's actually one little scene after that, but that's as far as these characters are concerned. That's what we end on the episode, is the camera fading away. But yeah, so like we say, we know that Naomi has hid this protomolecule sample. We've known that all season. We knew it had to come up at some point. But there was more information we didn't know. We didn't know that she'd already told Fred Johnson about it, which, by the way, we saw Fred Johnson. We haven't seen him in 6-7 episodes. That was nice.
I know. And that's what... We've praised this before, where if something's not relevant, we don't need to spend time with it. It trusts us to just know, hey, Fred Johnson's still around. He's still doing something. He's not just gone. It's
really funny when you think about it, though, how long it's been since we've been on a space station with all these characters, that would, the OPA, all that stuff. We've not seen them in ages at this point.
No.
But you see our logic. It's the whole mutually assured destruction. We have 3 sides in this war.
Yeah.
2 of them now have this weapon. And
well, I think that's what's interesting, actually, because this is probably the first time that the belt is on equal footing.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because typically it was always Mars and Earth, and the belt was always hung out to dry because it was this weird thing in the middle that they were fighting over, whatever. But it was always seen as this third entity, which didn't have the right to have its own army, that kind of thing. But Naomi has actually just put them on equal footing.
Yeah.
Which is...
I think that changes everything. Obviously, we've seen them actually coming together with a political force to, actually give them some legitimacy. But this puts them on the same level in terms of
But what's
weapons.
interesting about it, though, and what I think is really interesting about it, she didn't give it to Jared Harris.
No.
She didn't give it to him. She gave it to Fred, and we knew Fred that was like kind of on his last legs. Like his time was running out because of the all the incidents with the UN, and because he's the OPA were kind of severing ties with him. It felt like he was kind of on his way out. But all of a sudden, he just became the most important person.
He holds all the power.
Yeah, and the OPA might reconsider how they feel about Fred Johnson, and this might be a different thing. And honestly, just from a character perspective, I feel more comfortable with Fred Johnson making those decisions, because I think he's proven himself to understand the weight of the decisions.
I think that's why Naomi went to him. It's like, yeah, he's willing to do what he has to, but he's always very measured and considerate of what his move is. He thinks of the consequences. We've seen that time and time again.
Yeah, he doesn't feel like an extremist. He feels like someone unsanctioned, maybe, but he is still thinking with the mind of a strategist, someone.
Yeah.
If someone who is in the command position, but even if it's not like a official command position.
Yeah, he's still a tactician. He'll still think about the options and weigh up what he genuinely believes is best. Even if that is quite an extreme move, it'll be a considered move rather than just some rash thing that Jared Harris perhaps would just, right, we'll just do this and cement a position. Fred's will be much more thought out.
Yeah, it's kind of the difference between at what point is this not a political party or a political entity, and when does it start being just like a terrorist cell? Like, what is that difference between them? And Fred feels like he's more in the line of this makes it feel more like an actual group, an entity that should be treated like it
makes it more legitimate.
Yeah, not a political group, but a nation almost, if you will. It's not a nation, but in space, it's that kind of thing. So I think that's interesting. I think it puts us in a really interesting footing for next season. I am shocked and appalled that I now need to wait a year or close to for more episodes. It's heartbreaking. I'm assuming that the war that the book is named after is referring to the fact that we now have 3 entities all with this weapon.
You have to assume so.
Because I also assume that we're only halfway through the second book, if even that.
Yeah, like we said, we took a season and a half on just the first book.
Yeah, so I imagine we're maybe at most halfway through the second book. But
I'm sure someone can tell us in the comments.
Yes, but no, I am really interested. It's funny because it's a very different ending to season 1 ending, I feel like.
Yeah, season 1 was this big, massive thing that opened everything up. Whereas this, it does the opposite, where it brings it back in. It's like, right, where all the players are. Now let's set up what they can do. This is what this does. It just changes what we already know of, the pre-existing nature of things, instead of adding something entirely new.
It's funny actually. I think in hindsight, when we watch the whole show, whenever it's done, however many seasons that ends up being, I think season 2 will very much feel like this weird transitional. Because it feels like getting into season 3 now, we have this clear, this is what the status quo is. This is all the players are, and that's not to say that this season's felt like it's been filler, right? Because it's not, but it's just in the way that it's set up the next season. It feels like a lot of it's been
very much
setting
been
up.
A season of growth, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Because the first season, like you said, it had a clear goal for the entire season.
Yes.
It was singularly focused on one thing.
It was finding Julie. What is the proto-molecule? That's what the season was about.
Exactly. This season, it's been a little bit different. It's set up right. Okay, so this is the proto-molecule. This is some of the stuff that it's like. It's kind of given us some of the Martian stuff. Kind of introduced to Draper and gone right. Okay, so this is that stuff. We've had Fred Johnson kind of grow, but then kind of disappear, and the OPA kind of begin to legitimize themselves, but not fully get there. There's been a lot of things where it's showing us various things, but there's not been any singular overarching thing that defines the season, I don't think.
No, I mean, the closest has been this hybrid proto-sapien, but that didn't come into it until episode 7 or 8. That was a little bit later on. So it definitely feels, I guess, less focused in the sense that it has been kind of split in that sense, but it kind of makes sense because it was the end of the first book and then the start of the next book.
So, it feels like it's had focus episode to episode, and that's what's important.
Of course. Oh, absolutely.
Where, we've always spoke about how there's always a thematic link between all the plots. It's always focused on one idea. If something's not needed in this episode, we won't see it.
Yeah, which It's almost because if we are halfway through book 2, is season 3 the rest of book 2? Because that means we end nicely at the end of
Yeah,
end of
that's
a
true.
book. And maybe we won't. Maybe they'll do something different. Maybe they'll have other ideas. But it's no. I was really. I thought this finale was very, very action packed. A lot of the ticking time bomb kind of effect where you've like, our Holden's only got so long, the ship's only got so long before this thing gets through. But it set up this new status quo, which I think is very interesting. And like, is Holden going to have a grudge with Naomi, or is he going to accept what's happened? And okay, this is
Well, yeah,
where
because
we
that's
are.
kind of her whole speech is we need to accept that this is just something that's there now. We can't put it back in the box.
Yeah.
And it's just how well does he respond to that?
And at this point, she's right, because Earth and Mars both have it to an extent.
Exactly. And everyone knows about it. There's no hiding it anymore. There's no just, oh, let's just destroy it and, forget about it. That can't happen anymore.
Yeah. I have no idea where it's going next season, which is great. I
No,
like that
me either.
feeling. I really like that feeling.
I think as a season finale, I felt more satisfied with this one than I did with the previous one because the last one was such
yeah.
an explosive episode that set up so much and left me wanting so much more. Whereas this felt like, no, I get what this is, and
Which is
it
funny
focused things back in.
because I think the first season finale was bigger. It felt like a bigger budget, big event. Whereas this one, I don't think it felt like it was as much of a big event. But from a thematic level, it felt like it set up more stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like season 1, sure, I had questions at the end of season 1, but I feel like this left me with a lot more things to ponder and a lot more things to think about. Where's this going? Whereas season 1, we got the proto-molecular arm coming down and grabbing the guy, and it was like, oh,
So
yeah,
it's all right. Okay, so we're going with that. We get that
Yeah.
next season we're exploring that,
But
and that was kind of the main thing.
But the thing is, though, is that ending almost undersells how interesting it is, because the end of that's almost like, oh, it's like a monster then. It's not, it's more than that, it's way more than that. But that's kind of, it goes for that kind of ending where, it feels monstrous. Whereas this, seeing what it did to that ship on Venus, it's like, oh, no, there's way more. And obviously, before that, obviously we had it moving Eros, and we had it doing all sorts of things, but just to compare the finales, it took apart that ship, and it had the people floating there, and this is way more interesting
and
than anything.
that's just on the proto-molecule level. Then you have all the stuff with Fred Johnson. Like that's a whole thing in itself that where that leaves us. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And now we have Draper with a Vassarala, and Vassarala has now survived this thing where Ehrenreich wanted her to be dead, and now when she shows up in public, what happens in the UN?
Yeah, how's he gonna play this?
Yeah, and it almost makes a Vassarala and Draper feel like they're almost kind of like the Rassi now, in that they are not, like, sure, a Vassarala is still technically part of the UN, she's part of Earth, but it almost feels like her government might not be on her side.
Yeah,
When push
she's
comes
kind
to
of
shove.
playing outside the boundaries a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
She does what she has to.
But it really, I think them going through their thing with Draper, and Draper might feel more like devoted to Vassarala. Like maybe she'll find a new cause.
It was something that I actually noticed in the previous Leon. I don't think I mentioned it last week. When they all come in and with the guns at the end.
She's I noticed this.
She gets in front of Vassarala and pulls her behind her.
Yeah, I noticed
and it's
that.
Even then, before they've gone through this, she protects her. But then by the end of this, it's like a whole next level.
Yeah, so I'm looking for. I think Draper's been a great character. I think she's been a good new addition. I think Prax as well. I think both these two new characters, I'd say they're the two main ones that we've had this season.
Yeah,
and I think both of them have been really, really strong for different reasons.
Yeah, and they've both grown in different ways and shown us why they deserve their place in the show for very different roles.
Yeah, I think Prax was stronger out the gate. His first episode gave me a really good story, and it made me really care about him right away. Whereas Draper was more of a slow build, but certainly by the time by the time we got to her in the UN, it was like, all right, we're doing great stuff with her now.
Yeah, but the stuff before feels still very important because it gave us this baseline of who she was before all this went down.
I'm not saying that was weak. I'm just saying it didn't give me enough yet. Like it wasn't until it all built together that I was like, okay, right, I'm getting who she is now, and I'm really feeling something about her. Whereas Prax, they did that in one episode because they gave us that whole thing with his friend, and she get killed, and
Yeah.
that awful bit.
Obviously, with that being so much later in the season to when we first introduced Draper, they had to do that to kind of catch up almost.
It makes sense, but it also makes sense they didn't do it until we got to the Ganymede stuff. Like, because I mean, they could have had him like having scenes on Ganymede when stuff was normal with his daughter.
But like as much like we've said constantly, this show, if it's not relevant, doesn't show us. So until it's relevant, we don't need to see it.
Yeah, we didn't need to see that. Yeah, no, that's season 2 of The Expanse. When's season 3?
I could do it next week, please.
Yes, I really could. I could let's just go straight on. Let's not bother with a gap, please. Let's just.
Yeah, I kind of wish I wasn't banned from reading the books.
Don't make it sound like I'm being that forceful. It would ruin the discussion if you'd read the books.
I know.
We have fun
Well,
talking
maybe you should
about
read
it.
them too.
Come on, I've read I started reading it like a month ago, and I read like a chapter, like the first day I read it.
That is a beast of a tome, to be fair.
Yeah, I've still only read that chapter.
Okay, maybe that won't happen then.
Yeah, I don't got the time, right? I watch too many TV. I watch too much of the movies. Read too much of the comics. I don't have the time.
That is fair. We do too much stuff.
We do, but I like doing most of it though. It's just the occasional Iron Fist ruins my day.
Yeah, but then we get this, so it all balances out.
Yeah, or the occasional Arrow. It's been nice a few weeks of not having that, hasn't it? Just before we go, actually, I alluded that there was a funny moment that was my favourite funny moment of the episode.
Yes, you did.
And I need to mention this. So it's when Holden's got his leg brace on after the fact, and Alex slaps his leg, right, and it hurts. He's like, "Oh, sorry, that probably hurt really bad." And then Amos, like, he smacks him in the back of the head. He's like, "Oh, I'm really glad I didn't have to kill you." And Holden's like, "Yeah, me too." And then Amos, as he's walking away, without even reacting after he does it, just slaps him in the leg again and just walks off. And I burst out laughing. It made me laugh so goddamn much.
I love the idea. It's like, I don't know if he did that just because he doesn't even realise, or if he did it intentionally as like, I'm going to screw with you.
I think it was intentional, because I feel like if he didn't mean to, he'd at least... He may not say sorry, but he'd pause and go, "Oh." And he would at least acknowledge that he made a mistake.
Do you know something about Amos quickly? I really like the scene he had with Naomi, where she apologizes for drugging him, and he starts apologizing, and he talks about how he's been trying to make choices of his own, and again, it's coming back to what I was saying earlier about who does he choose ultimately, but it's really nice to see him kind of forging away and forging his own identity.
Yeah, at least trying to.
At least trying to. He's trying to become his own man rather than just a dog for Naomi like he was for quite a while.
And as she says, no one gets it right all the time.
Yeah, which is poignant given that maybe she was wrong with the proto-molecule. We just don't know yet.
Maybe, yeah. What will she regret later on?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's season 2 of The Expanse. Let us know what you thought of the episode and the season as a whole in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. Individual Twitters on the screen for our general everyday ramblings. Thank you very much for watching. Have you got any vanilla?